Today we're talking about NPCs. Here we have an NPC. It's Avessa, and she's eating that loaf of bread. Sorta. Her mouth isn't really making contact with the loaf of bread, but she's eating it, and you know that that's what's happening. So just don't look too closely. So when you talk to an NPC in a video game, they have a few specific lines that they will always say. You know what they're going to do before they even do it because you've seen it before. And that's all right, because they're not real people. They're there to pique your curiosity and fill a game world with interesting things to see. They are good for sparking the imagination. And yet, they're not real people. That's just the truth. And in life, real life, sometimes people act like NPCs. If you talk to them about things that matter, sometimes you feel like you're getting absolutely nowhere. Because they have a safe, scripted line which they always adhere to. And you can't get them to deviate. There's just not any personality behind that politically correct dialogue, which they'll always default to. You'll find it in a lawyer or a HR person or something quite often. People who always know how to say just the right, correct thing. But if you really think about it, afterwards, they haven't said anything at all. Because saying something meaningful would mean putting themselves out there. It would mean being honest in a personal way. It would mean showing some level of vulnerability. And that's something they're not willing to do. So they always tell you exactly what the correct line is, and then they just go in circles. And once they're in that mode of going in circles, conversation is done, just like an NPC in a video game. You can go back and you can talk to that NPC again. That E button is going to be there to interact. You can go talk to the NPC again if you want. Absolutely. The only thing is, the NPC is going to say exactly what it said last time. So I find that to be quite ridiculous and perhaps even offensive in real life when this happens. Maybe it's because I like to think my time is worth more than that. And nobody likes having their time wasted. But maybe the worst of it is that people who go into this NPC-like loop of spouting the correct political rhetoric, they act like you're the problem if you're not satisfied with what they have to say. They'll say, of course, I'm being completely transparent with you. Well, no, you're not, because you're making sure that you cover for yourself. That's what you're doing. You're making sure that you can walk away from the conversation and not have any risk of any kind of liability, because nobody can come along and say that you stood for or against anything. You're just that complete neutral deflecting. That's all you're doing. There's far too much of that. it's all right to say, you know what, I'm not going to make a comment. I'm not going to have anything to say to you, because to protect you and to protect me from liability, I'm not going to talk to you at all. That's all right, because that's honest. You can always say, it's none of your business. I am not going to talk to you. You can do that. But when you say, no, I'm here for you, and then you proceed to ghost and gaslight, that's when it becomes an altogether different situation in any relationship, whether it's personal or business. It's when people act like they're genuine. They act like they care. They act like they're approachable. And then they deliberately follow a behavioral pattern which is evasive. That's disingenuous. And we see it all the time. In all sorts of different walks of life, we see this happen all the time. I'll give you an example. So at work, we have this policy at a store that I work at, right? Policy is that if somebody wants to buy gift cards, they can only buy $500 of gift cards a day. Sounds fair. I get it. Sounds good. But I'm talking to our AP, asset protection manager, about this. I said, well, what is the policy? Policy is, if somebody wants to buy more than $500 of gift cards, the asset protection manager says, well then, we can't sell them more than $500 of gift cards. If they want more than that, then we have to tell them we can't sell them the gift cards. We can tell them that we can sell them $500 worth of gift cards. That's all we can tell them. Right? So I said, well, the policy though is we can sell them $500 worth of gift cards per day, right? Because that's what the policy says. The manager says, well, it is true that they can purchase $500 a day, but if we tell them that they can come back tomorrow and buy more, that's structuring. We're helping them do something which is against our policy. Right? So yeah, I get it. It's structuring. If you are going to say the rule is I can only buy $500 of this, so I'm going to do 2 separate transactions right now and do like 500 and 500, make it 1,000, but make it look like it wasn't 1,000. Well, that's structuring. You can't do that. I get that. But that's not what we're talking about here, is it? We're talking about telling them, this customer, we're telling them they could come back tomorrow because the policy says 500 a day, right? But you see, now this particular manager has indicated that, well, if you tell them that they can come back tomorrow, then you're potentially structuring, you're helping them get around the system, and you might be fired for that. So you absolutely can't tell them that. So I said, well, okay, can we tell them that it's only $500 max ever? Like they can't ever come back. Can we tell them that? That once you bought $500 of these gift cards, you can never come back and get more because it's $500 for the rest of your life. Can we tell them that? And the manager said, no, can't tell them that because that's not our policy. All right, so which is it, right? Is it 500 a day? Is it 500 forever? Well, no. What it all turns out to be is selling large amounts of gift cards potentially puts the company in a position of liability risk if something goes wrong. So our official mantra then has become, we will not tell anyone what our policy is at all. We'll tell them that they can buy up to $500 of gift cards today, and then the rest of it, we'll just leave them hanging. We're not going to tell them the truth at all. Because by somebody's perhaps arbitrary definition, being straight up to somebody puts everybody at risk. Something like that. No, I don't know. Truth is, I don't really care. It's just a great example of where you have somebody just going in circles, right? Going in circles. A whole bunch of ado, all designed to make sure that nothing is actually said. It's like there's this movie, Office Space, I think it was called, but there was this guy, and he worked in his office, and they fired him, but they didn't tell him that they fired him. So he goes down to the HR manager, and the HR manager says, "Oh, you got to go talk to the boss about this." And he goes and talks to the boss, and the boss says, "Oh, you got to go talk to the HR manager." So he goes back and forth down the hall between these two people because neither of them have enough guts to just tell them the truth. That's kind of how people are. There's a lot of silliness out there. People just go in circles, passing folks from one worthless solution to another worthless solution just so they don't have to deal with it. And people say that they're on your side or that they're trying to be upfront and honest and straight with you, but the truth of the matter is they're 100% just trying to cover their rear end, right? This is just how people are, and it's totally ridiculous. So where am I going with this? Well, I'm going to the topic of being self-sufficient and independent from the manipulation of other people. That's where I'm going with this. When we are totally in the clutches of somebody else's leverage, then we have to play that game, right? And somebody says jump, you gotta jump. If the boss says you gotta victimize somebody, you gotta treat them like crap because you know what? You want your job, right? Well, if I need that job, then I guess I'm gonna have to say, yeah, sure, I'll just jump right on that bandwagon and do something I don't believe is right. I'll say anything to anybody. I'll make people's life hell. I'll do whatever I have to do because, God forbid, somebody gets rid of me, right? That's not a good place to be in. You gotta be independent. Now, being independent doesn't necessarily mean that you go out into the forest and you live by yourself and you grow your own food and you make your own energy and you hunt in the forest and you're just 100% not connected to society anymore. Doesn't mean that. I mean, it could mean that. Good for you if you're able to do that. But what does it really mean? It just means maybe you have enough money put away so if you had to find another job, it would not be hard. So if somebody came along and asked you to do something that seemed a little bit unethical, you wouldn't have to sell your soul just so that you can have a loaf of bread. Or maybe to be in a secure enough place to where you can just do what you feel like you want to do. And if people like it, then they can come along. And if they don't like it, they can write you off. And you know what? It's no harm, no foul, not a big deal. That doesn't make life perfect, but it sure does give you a breath of fresh air. When you just know, at the end of the day, I don't belong to anybody. If somebody wants to get rid of me, they can do that. If I have to take a stand for something, I can do that. I'm just not worried about other people because I'm not their slave. I'm not beholden to them. Now, I might go to work every day. I might have a job. Absolutely. But it's something I gave consent to, not something which controls me. And a lot of people would like to be truthful and honest and straight up, but they can't, because they've sold their soul for that loaf of bread. They've sold their soul for that more house than they can afford. They've sold their soul for the new big pickup truck, whatever it might be. And once you've done that, then you kind of just have to play the game and be the pawn that somebody else wants you to be. But if you don't, if you get yourself free from that, well, you might still be doing the same role. You might still have the same job, you know? Sure. But it's your choice. And there's nothing more liberating than knowing that you're holding all the cards in your own life. And nobody can threaten you, because ultimately, they don't own you. That's an important place to be. And oftentimes when you get to that place, you're in a better position to negotiate anyway, because people realize they can't really manipulate you, because they kind of have to try to play fair if they want you to be around. So they tend to be a little bit more reasonable than they probably would be otherwise. Always try to live your life honestly. Always try to be free from the influences of other people as much as you possibly can. Always try to be straight up and honest. Honest with others. And most importantly, honest with yourself. Wherever you find yourself on your journey in life, best wishes to you. Till next time. Thank you for watching.